Good morning. While I'm continuing to allow some time for my water feature, Realistic Water to Cure, I'm going to touch on another project today, and that is to do with how I'm working on the trees that I'm going to be putting around the layout. There are already a few trees in evidence, but I'm adding some more. And what I'm using is these tree armatures that come from Woodland Scenic. They're made by Woodland Scenic, but actually I purchased them through Trainworld, trainworld.com. And in addition to those tree armatures, I'm using the fine leaf foliage from Woodland Scenics, also purchased through Trainworld. And this is called dead foliage, which is what I need in order to make it look like a winter scene. In a winter scene on a deciduous tree, you'd have just a few dead leaves clinging to the branches, and that's what I'm trying to model. These tree armatures come flat like this, which is kind of a strange starting point, but they easily twist and turn into something like this. You can reshape them as you want to make them look more like a tree, and you can then, having done that, you can then affix to them some of the fine leaf foliage. Now the fine leaf foliage goes on, first of all, you take a product like Hob-e-Tac, which is a clear adhesive. It comes out looking very thick and milky, and then you dab it on the branches and it dries to a clear adhesive. After about 15 minutes of drying, it's clear, but it's still tacky, and then you can take and put in the leaves that you want, and you can do this a variety of ways. You can roll it in the fine leaf mixture, or you can take it little bits and squeeze them on to the branches in order to get the effect that you want. The tree armatures, as you see with this one, come out brown, pretty plain brown plastic. You need to do a couple things. First, you need to break off the base from the trunk and from this little tab in between that is part of the molding process, and twist the branches into a shape that you think is going to be pleasing for you. When you're doing this, you also need to take something like an X-Acto knife or a sharp blade of some kind and trim off this so that there's no sign of that remaining. And then my next step was to paint this. I created a gray by taking a mixture of the paint thinner, Testor paint thinner, Testor black, flat black, and Testor flat gray. And by doing that, I ended up, or flat white rather, doing that I ended up with a gray paint that looks more like a deciduous tree trunk. And by adding the little bit of paint thinner to it, you can then, after you've painted on, it doesn't cover up all the texture of the trunk. You can still see that because the paint is not as thick as it would be if you used it right out of the jar. After you've twisted these into the shape that you want and have the tree looking the way you want it to look, have it painted, you paint it after you've shaped it, and then use the Hob-e-Tac to create attachment points for the dead leaves. After the dead leaves, spray it with like scenic cement, mist it with scenic cement, and that will permanently affix the leaves so that it's not going to fall apart. Once I have these completed, these bases are essentially going to be throwaway because I'll be putting the trees directly into the layout, drilling a little hole, putting a little glue on here, and then setting them directly into the layout, so the bases won't be on them. But the bases do give you a really good point to hold on to the tree while you're doing the painting and while you're affixing the leaves. And then once you're done with that, once you're ready to put it onto your layout, you could use the bases if that suits your purpose, or in my case, I'm going to be discarding the bases and putting the trunks directly into the layout, gluing them upright in the layout. So that's one of those things I'm working on now while I'm waiting for my realistic water to fully cure in my water feature. And once I've got that all fully cured, I'll be on to the next step. Next steps for me will include adding water ripples across the surface. I want the surface of my water feature to look rippled, so once I have it as deep as I want it and cured fully, then I'll do the ripples, and that will complete the water feature at that point. So I appreciate you watching today. Please click the thumbs up below, like the video. That's a big boost for me when you do that. I appreciate that. Also, subscribe if you haven't done that. Click to subscribe, and feel free to share this video with anyone else you know that's into modeling of any kind. So, thanks for watching.